So former Chancellor George Osborne has called for a complete ban on smoking. He was speaking to the Times Health Commission earlier this week. He said that we should ban all cigarettes, but also we should tax orange juice. It was another little tidbit. I mean, this kind of...
It's hard to know where to begin with this, isn't it?
It's really hard to know where to begin with this. It's just so crazy. But in a sense, it's not that unusual as well. You know, people have become so authoritarian when it comes to things like smoking or to unhealthy food that it's, you know, yes, this is slightly more extreme than what is being argued day to day, but...
I know, I was heartened by the backlash that happened.
Yeah.
You know, I think I, like many people, was surprised to find that I could dislike George Osborne even more than I currently do. But so it did. What are you talking about? Was the kind of ridiculous backlash. Again, him wanting to kind of not only ban cigarettes, it's time to ban cigarettes. Of course, there's going to be a problem with the black market, but you get that when you make anything illegal. There's really ridiculous comments. Wanted to go back and kind of, you know, finish the business of his sugar tax, extending it to orange juice, which is a great scourge affecting our country, of course, at this particular
White people are
point.
obese. Too much orange juice.
Too much orange juice. But at the same time, as you say, it's not as crazy a suggestion in terms of public health circles than people would think. So, like New Zealand, one of Jacinda Ardern's final acts in politics was to pass this law, which would effectively phase out tobacco.
Yeah.
So I believe it's anyone born on or after the 1st of January 2009 will never be able to buy a cigarette. There's also there was a report that the government commissioned last year. It was a Khan review into kind of smoking and all these different things. Suggested, thankfully not implemented, but suggested that we should raise the smoking age by 1 year every year until no one can ever smoke again. These ideas are very much kind of in the offing. There are many places, including New Zealand, as I say, who are wanting to kind of be these trailblazers in effectively tobacco prohibition.
Yeah.
This is really on the table now. So what, as irritated as a lot of people might have been by George Osborne, this could easily be a kind of sign of where a lot of places are going at this point.
And Labour's Wes Streeting has made similar comments, seemingly on the grounds that he just doesn't like smoking, that that people who
doesn't
smoke
like the smell of it.
Yeah, people who smoke smell, and therefore it should be banned. No consideration as to what this means for the black market, the amount of additional crime this produces, the amount of violence and corruption, as everyone knows, attends the drug war, would suddenly reach tobacco as well. And we also have this plan introduced by Theresa May to make England smoke free. Now, we don't necessarily know what is going to be implemented in order to reach that, but it's this idea that less than 5% of people will be smokers. There does seem to be sort of no limit to it. Everything is at least pointing towards prohibition anyway.
Yeah.
So as much as, I agree with you, Tom. George Osborne is one of my least favourite politicians. But what he said is not even that out there.
No, it's really not. And I think it's a reminder of the fact that in this whole discussion, the point and the argument that people should be able to do what they like so long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. Really basic liberal John Stuart Mill sort of principles are completely absent. The assumption is, well, if something's bad for people, they shouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
And therefore, as you saw in these George Osborne comments, as you saw in the Wes Streeting comments, they're like, well, of course, it's a logical endpoint. The state has taken it upon itself to suggest that not only that it wants to kind of ward you away from cigarettes and alcohol, that it wants to ward you away from sugary foods, from all kinds of different things. And so it's the next logical step, which is why it's more important than ever to get back to that kind of more principled argument, which is to say that people should be free to make their own decisions, to weigh up what it is that they value more in life, that being healthy and living a few more years is not necessarily more important than a life of a bit more pleasure, as some people would see it. This is a kind of anathema to the sort of debate that we've been having currently, but it's important that we bring it back, because otherwise you will just get this slow drift towards prohibition, especially at a time which is really strange, where smoking rates are like 13% of the population. This is not something which is plaguing us in any meaningful sense as a society, and yet it's still there because of those old puritanical instincts, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think it makes it really clear that it was the time to object to this stuff was at the time of the smoking ban. People failed to defend smokers, and now they're going to come for your sugar, your alcohol, your nos.
Out of your cold.
I don't know how many of our viewers are into their laughing gas, But again, and often that, you know, the health justifications, such as they are very weaselly.
Yeah.
You know, people, they give laughing gas to pregnant women, for God's sake. It's not really that dangerous. Or, you know, we're slightly, for some reason, our public health scientists in the UK are not as mad on the question of vaping. But if you look at what's happening in Australia or in the US, you know, there are big crackdowns on vaping, even though it has been proven to help people quit smoking, much healthier alternative. It's often a little bit like Wes Streeting and his opposition to the smell. It's almost an aesthetic thing. It's almost like a cultural aversion to some of these things, rather than a genuinely kind of scientific health-based.
And it's a reminder that all this public health stuff is really about Puritanism.
Yeah.
Really. Effectively, we talked a bit about this on Last Orders, our Nanny State podcast that we do with Chris Nome from the IEA. But this is really what drives it. They say it's about your health, they say it's about for your own good and so on. It's because there has always been a layer of society who are quite miserable, who prioritise health over almost anything else, want to impose their lifestyles on the lower orders, and are effectively offended by people's different choices. And I think the vaping thing, as you say, is a perfect example. It's effectively the answer to that thought experiment of what if you could invent a cigarette which has none of the health problems. They pretty much did it, and yet they still want to get rid of it, which I think tells you where they're coming from in all this.
Definitely.